All right, folks, can everybody see my screen? If I could have somebody just give me a thumbs up that they can see my screen right now.
It's easier to say yes because I see your screen.
Okay. So, all right, so we're going to talk today about some sales management tools that have a tendency to create really positive interactions between managers and sales reps. So these strategies or tools tend to be somewhat motivational. They're goal oriented. And the idea is to squeeze out a few more orders every month by changing and motivating behaviors. And what I found over time is that when this is something that is done consistently, it leads to habit formation in a real positive sense. So, but what I really love about these tools is that they create opportunities for managers and sales reps to collaborate. So not only collaborate on which tools are being used, but how those tools are implemented and which tools work and which tools don't. There is an element of accountability to these tools, which from my view is a very positive thing. And we're going to talk about accountability. And it also has a tendency to create a game out of certain behaviors and certain targets and certain goals, which can turn work into something that's a little bit more fun. So I think that's also a really positive aspect to some of these tools. I do want to say at the outset for both managers and sales reps that it's not a one size fits all. What I have learned over the years is that people are different. And even salespeople are different. There is not one personality type amongst all sales reps. And some of these tools work better for one personality, and some of them work better for a different personality. And so part of the process for implementation of these tools is just kind of figuring out what works for the manager and the sales reps, what is actually driving behavior and motivating and creating opportunities for change. So here's our agenda. There are three tools that we're going to talk about: scheduling, critical success factors or CSFs, and then individual spreadsheets. And we're going to talk about these one at a time, starting with scheduling. Now, we have talked about scheduling in the past as it related to sales reps and a really good positive thing that they can do to sort of plan their day, their week, their month. And none of that has really changed. Scheduling is something that every sales rep should be doing because it's a really good exercise for them to plan out their intentions. But what I really like about scheduling and what I think really creates the opportunities for collaboration is when that schedule is shared with the manager. So I want to show you what I'm talking about as far as the schedule and just give you a couple of quick examples of what it might look like. And then I want to talk more about how it creates opportunities for collaboration. So really what it is, it's either a spreadsheet or it's just scheduling things in your Outlook and you're just listing the customers by time and planning out your day, including planning for lunches and travel time. And it should be something that repeats itself. So if you created a good schedule, then that schedule is gonna rotate either on a monthly basis or possibly a bi-weekly basis, depending on how many customers you have. So let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you two different examples. And I'm going to have to stop sharing my screen and then share my screen again. And you should be seeing my calendar. Can Summer or Julie, can you give me a yes on that? Are you all seeing my calendar?
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. Now I've lost it. Let me try that again. Okay, so there is my calendar, and this is just an example of one day on Wednesday the 24th of scheduling out your day as a sales rep. So customer 1, customer 2, traveling at 10, having a lunch, hitting some more customers in the afternoon, and then at 4 o'clock, having some time to do your administrative things, right? So that's one example of using Outlook as a means of scheduling or putting together a schedule. The other way is by using a spreadsheet. So here is a couple of templates I put together that show, this one in particular shows 120 visits. So this is 40 customers, 80 prospects over the course of a month. It even has time for admin and prospecting and scheduling lunch. So this would be something that you could repeat on a weekly or monthly basis, depending on your number of customers. And so again, it's just really a listing of what your day should look like. And we've talked about in the past about why this is important for sales reps to do this. So what I want to focus on now is not the creation of the schedule, but the sharing of the schedule with the sales rep, excuse me, with the manager. So let me get back to my presentation. All right, and I can just get a yes from somebody if you're seeing my PowerPoint presentation again.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So if the sales rep sends this schedule that they've created, either using Outlook or spreadsheet, to their manager on a routine basis, let's say every Monday, right? It allows the manager to do a few things. One is the manager can help by looking at the schedule to make sure that it's efficient, right? We're all better or worse at planning, and having another set of eyeballs who's making sure that the route that we've set up on that day makes sense and is efficient, then that's helpful, because the more sales calls that we can squeeze in, the more likely we are to get orders, the more opportunities we have to get orders. So having another set of eyeballs who's able to say, hey, what if you move this here? Maybe you hit these two at the same time. This schedule's got you crisscrossing across town a couple of times. Maybe that we can do a more efficient job of that. So it just creates an opportunity for the manager to help the sales rep plan out a good route. What it also does is it allows the manager and the sales rep to have individual discussions about individual customers. So let me give you an example. Let's say the manager helped out an attorney the previous week with an underwriting question involving estates. We'll call the attorney Bob Smith. So the manager helped Bob Smith with an estate question on Thursday. Monday, the sales rep sends the manager her calendar, and it has Bob Smith on it that week. That will create an opportunity for the manager to say to the sales rep, hey, I don't know if you know this, but I had a conversation with Bob last week, and I helped him out with a really interesting estate underwriting question. So that opportunity to discuss Bob Smith would not have arisen had not they had this opportunity to look at the schedule together. And then the sales rep can take that information back to Bob Smith and say something like, I heard that my manager was able to help you out with this underwriting question last week. We're so thankful that we had an opportunity to help you out with something. We'd love to do it again in the future. My manager loves helping people, loves talking to attorneys and working on thorny estate or underwriting issues. And we would love to help you with those sorts of things, right? Something like that. The other thing it might do is the manager might see that attorney on the schedule for that week and say, oh, I see that you're going to see Bob Smith on Wednesday. How about we turn that into a lunch, because I'd like to come with you. So there's an opportunity there by looking at the schedule to for the manager to jump in and maybe do a joint sales call or have a joint lunch, or alternatively, it presents opportunities for the manager and the sales rep to discuss individual strategy sessions per customer. So the manager might look at the schedule and say, what are you doing with this account? Have you tried talking with them about prior policy lookups? We found 20 for them this month. Have you talked to them about that? Or, hey, have you tried having the title tracks discussion with this particular customer? And so it just creates this opportunity for the two sales rep and manager to collaborate and to discuss and have specific conversations about specific customers. And what that does is it leads to intentionality, right? So it helps the sales rep when they're going into offices to have maybe specific things in mind because she's talked about it with her manager. So that's scheduling. The second tool that I want to talk about is CSFs, or critical success factors. And what this is a spreadsheet, right? It's a spreadsheet that is measuring certain things where entries are being made periodically, hopefully daily. So let me show you what this looks like. All right, if somebody can give me a yes, they can see my screen right now, and a CSF.
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. All right, so here's an example of CSF. Again, CSF stands for critical success factors. And what I want to say at the outset is that you can measure whatever it is that you want to measure. And what it is that you're measuring should be the product of a discussion between the sales rep and the manager. Collaboration about what things do we think that are important, that if we do them and we monitor them, they're going to lead to more orders. So in this example, there are three things that we're measuring here. We're measuring sales calls, transactions, and the total number of customers that have sent orders. And what happens is that on a daily basis, hopefully, the sales rep at the end of the day, or maybe the beginning of the next day, is making entries into these categories that they have agreed to measure or decided to measure. So if we're making sales calls, you can see on the first day of the month, they had 5, second day 10, third day 8. I can make another entry here. We'll say 7, 5, and you can see how the calls number keeps going up every entry I make. So as those entries are being made, there's a percentage that is being reflected, which is measuring the progress that is being made towards achieving that goal. I can do the same thing here with transactions. If I enter a 4 and a 7, you can see the number of transactions increasing as you get closer and closer to that goal. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, you measure whatever you want to measure, but the idea is that you're making these entries on a daily basis. And what that is doing for the sales rep is that it is keeping them grounded to their customers. By doing that on a daily basis, they know how many orders they're receiving. They know where they're coming from. They know what a good day looks like and what a bad day looks like. When they have a really good day, if they did 10, 12, 15 orders, that's a great day to have a celebration and to high five each other over. But if you're not looking at that number and you're not making those entries daily, you may not be seeing how you're progressing towards your goal. The other thing that it does, which I like a lot, is that it creates opportunities for behavior modifications at the ends of months. So as you're progressing through the month, you're seeing how you're progressing through for achieving that CSF. If you get to the last week of the month and you're going to be short on your visits, then you can increase your visits that last week. And if you've decided together that hitting a certain number of visits is more likely to increase your order count, then motivating somebody to increase their visits in the last week of the month is a good thing. If they're 3 or 4 orders short of hitting their CSF on orders, then they might do some things that they don't ordinarily do, like send an email to a customer or go and visit a customer who they think might be able to give them another order or 2. And it's those little incremental changes to behaviors that cause 3, 4, 5, 10 more orders to come in on a given month. And alternatively, what it's doing is creating these habits of looking at your numbers and at the ends of the month asking yourself, what can I do to achieve my goal? Now, I used to do a mid-month check-in with all of my sales reps. I would talk with them at the midpoint of each month, and one of the things we would look at is the CSF, and we would look to see how close we were at achieving their goals that month. And if they were running a little bit short on visits, I would tell them, hey, you're going to have to pick up your calls if you want to hit this CSF. If they were running short on orders, I'd say, hey, you're not quite at the halfway point of your order goal, and you may have to pick it up at the back end of this month if you're going to achieve that CSF. So it's a way of creating these little motivations that cause a sales rep to do something that they might not otherwise do, with the ultimate goal of increasing their orders. Now, you can measure whatever it is that you want to measure, and whatever you as a manager and you as a sales rep decide are important things that if we measure them and if we're held accountable to them, they're going to result in more orders. So some other examples might be, I want to have a certain number of Fidelity Connect events or marketing events. I want to have a certain number of lunches or coffees. I want to talk to X amount of realtors or non-lawyers or lenders. But it could be anything that the two people, manager and sales rep, decide collaboratively that if we do these things, they're more likely to help us achieve success. So it's a good little tool, mostly because there's collaboration and it's being measured on a daily basis. So it is a daily reminder for the sales rep of what she and the manager decided at the beginning of the month was something that was important to them. The third tool is a spreadsheet. So it is, I like to think of it as a one-shop stop, right? It has a lot of stuff in it, and it's a place where a sales rep can go and look at data, look at goals, and look at these motivational tools all in one shot. So let me share my screen again. I want to show you what one looks like. All right, Summer or Julie, if you can just give me a yes that you can see my screen and you can see a spreadsheet.
Yes.
Perfect. Yep. All right, so I have multiple tabs on this spreadsheet, starting with a client list. So in this particular tab, what I've done is organize the sales reps' accounts and put them into different buckets. So bucket A could be your standard accounts, so people that send you orders every month. They send you 5, 10, whatever, just a solid account. Bucket B might be somebody who sends one order a month, or they send them periodically, every other month or every second month. There may be a bucket of just people who only send an order once or twice a year, and then a listing for prospects or commercial order accounts. So, but a place where the sales rep can go and look and see all of her accounts in one place. If the sales rep has created annual goals, I like to put them in this place. If this is a place that the sales rep will go periodically to look at things, then I think it's a good place for the goals to be. I don't really believe in setting goals if they're never going to be looked at. If they're looked at once a year, just when they're set and never looked at again, it kind of defeats the purpose. So if you're going to have a spreadsheet that they're going to be in, having a little reminder of what their annual goals that they set at the beginning of the year is probably a good thing to have in this spreadsheet. Here's an example of a score sheet. So let me explain how this works. There are certain targets, goals, and behaviors that are assigned on this left-hand column that result in points. So for example, if this sales rep got orders from 50 plus customers, she got 10 points. And if she got orders from 60 plus customers, she got 50 points, right? So depending on the number of customers that send in orders in any given month, there would be a point total assigned to that. Same thing with visits. As her visits increase, her point total increases. Same thing with orders. There's 5 points for sending me your schedule. There's 10 points for hitting a CSF goal. There's making an individual goal. They're hitting your 60% rate on your targets, which I'll explain in a second. So in any event, it is hitting goals and rewarding behaviors by assigning point totals to them. And the idea is that as they accumulate points, those point totals go towards the achievement of their end of year bonus. So the more points they can score, the higher their bonus is going to be. And it's essentially turning their goals, their targets, and their behaviors into a game. And I mentioned that gamification is one of the things that these tools do. They turn these behaviors and these goals and these motivations into a game. And for some personalities, there's an appeal to that. Then I have a tab for each month in which I would go and set targets for each customer. So if you look at this top line here, the target was 10. The salesperson actually got 9 orders from that customer, and so on. So for each customer, I would set a target, and then I would compare that target that I set at the end of the month with the number that was actually achieved. And I would keep track of which targets were hit, which targets were not, and I had a metric of 60%. So the goal was to try to hit at least 60% of the targets that I established. In this example, the sales rep hit almost 66%. So that was a pat on the back. That was a good job. That sales rep had hit her target that month by exceeding 60%. And I would do this for each month. And then as we go on, I have monthly totals that are broken down by customer, by month, and that's historical data, in this case from 2014 forward. This is just a receptacle for data, which I intend to talk with all of us about in August. So I don't want to spend too much time on data or tracking data or using data, other than to say the spreadsheet was a place where we could put this data so that the salesperson had it at their fingertips whenever she wanted to look at it. And then the last tab I want to highlight is this plus or minus here. And what this tab is doing is comparing 2 periods of time and comparing customer totals for those 2 periods of time. And it can be any 2 periods of time that you want. It could be month over month. So this month, last month. It could be same month, year over year. So June of this year versus June of last year. It could be quarters. It could be years. In this example, I am actually doing a plus minus for the years 2018 versus 2019. And what I think this does is it really crystallizes for the sales rep where the successes and the losses were. So if we look at this customer on line 2, their order total increased from 129 to 467. So for that period of time that we're measuring, which is a year, we had an uptick in 338 orders. So that's an opportunity for the sales rep and the manager to look at that account and say, wow, we did something really right this year with that account. Let's look back and try to figure out, if we can, what led to this success. Alternatively, you have the other side of the spectrum, right? In this example here, we went from 282 orders in 2018 to 64 orders in 2019, a net loss of 218 orders. So what happened there? In this particular case, I think it's because the attorney passed away, or maybe they just went out of business, retired. But if it's not one of those situations, it gives us an opportunity to examine, right? What are we doing wrong with this account? What can we do to get it back? Where have we had missteps with this account? So as I go back to my presentation, that's an example of a spreadsheet, an individualized spreadsheet, is really sort of a monthly snapshot of where the sales rep stands, and a place where the sales rep can go to look at data, to look at some of the motivational tools that we've established, and figure out where she stands at any given point in the month or the year. So those are the tools, and I want to just talk real briefly about why I like these tools so much. And the main reason is collaboration, right? These tools create an ongoing conversation between the manager and the sales rep. And anytime those two people are talking, particularly about individual accounts, I think that that's a positive. They also have the ability to create behaviors that, if they're done month over month, turn into habits. And so asking a customer at the end of the month if they have one more order for them or two more orders for them, that has the ability to turn into a good habit. And I do want to stress, like I did earlier, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Some of these tools work better for some and don't work at all for others. It really just kind of depends on the sales rep's personality. But what I like about them collectively is that it creates discussions between managers and sales reps. There is a sense of accountability with these tools, and that is not a negative. I think we all would agree that sometimes we need a nudge. We get into a rut, or we start falling into bad habits, and having somebody who can remind us that we set some goals at the beginning of a month or a year, and that, you know, we may be falling short of those goals. Having somebody who's sort of peering over your back, making sure that you're headed in the right direction, is not a bad thing, right? It takes a village, it takes a team, and it's a team effort. And so having an accountability partner and somebody who can, you know, keep you on track is a positive thing in my mind. And these tools allow for that sort of thing to occur. I read a sales book recently, and in it was this quote that said, what gets measured gets done. And that is just another way of saying that if the boss is stressing something, we tend to do it. So these tools create accountability and making sure that we're remembering the things that we said were important at the beginning of any period of time. And then lastly, it creates gamification, right? So it's turning some of these behaviors into a game. Now, my experience with sales reps is that they tend to be competitive. and winning at games appeals to their personalities. Now, I know that that can't be true of everybody, and even in my experience, it wasn't true of everybody, but there are aspects of these tools that tend to appeal to certain personalities, and those personalities are often sales reps. So it turns what really is habit formation, behavior modification, into something that is more fun. If you're scoring points to earn a higher bonus, or you're scoring points because you want to have more points than the other sales rep, it's turning behavior into something fun. But it also creates a sense of accomplishment. If I do score the most points in a month, it makes me feel good about what I'm doing. It makes me feel good about myself. If I score the most points in a year, if I hit my targets, if I hit my CSFs, all of these are little bumps in our self-esteem that are helping us keep getting out there and fighting the fight and doing the grind, which sales can be. So any way that we as managers can help sales reps by turning something that maybe is not as fun into something that is fun, I think we're doing something that is helpful in that case. I know that for me, in my experience, Christine really liked having targets. It was just something that she could shoot for, and she felt really good when she could hit them, and she tried awfully hard to hit as many of her targets as she could. Kiera, on the other hand, loved scoring points. She wanted to score more points than everybody in a monthly basis, in an annual basis, and all of those ways that she could score points were all motivators for her. And that turned her day into something fun. So I want to mention a couple more things before we move on. I mentioned data earlier, and that I didn't want to spend too much time on recording data or tracking data. But I would want to make a suggestion. I think that there is some utility to having your sales rep go and create a spreadsheet documenting all of the orders that all of their customers have received or sent your operation over a period of time, let's say 3 years. And what I think that exercise would do for your sales rep is it would show them the ebbs and flows of orders from your customers. It will show trends on an annual basis. It'll show trends over time. They might find that a customer that sends 20 orders a month currently used to send 2 3 years ago. And again, that's an opportunity for the sales rep to ask herself, wow, we've come a long way with this account. What are we doing right? And then there's the converse. An account that used to send 10 orders a month is now sending 1 or 2 a month. And so we used to do 10 orders with that account. What were we doing then that appealed to them that maybe we're not doing now? Or what has changed for that account? So I think that could be a very enlightening exercise for sales reps and something that you all may want to think about doing. And then, like I said, when we get into August, we'll talk about ways in which we can use that data when we're out in the field. And then I wanted to say very briefly something about setting targets. If setting a monthly targets appeals to you as managers or as sales reps because it's something to shoot for, just understand that it's more of an art than a science. You have to look at things like, what is the current trend? How many are they sending? How many is that customer sending to us right now? How much did they send to us this time last year? Are they trending up? Are they trending down? Are we in June or are we in January? All of those factors will go into setting a good target. And if it's not a good target, it really doesn't serve its point. So if the target is too low and the sales rep achieves it in the first week of the month, she sort of loses track of that account. That account is not as important as maybe some of the other accounts where she's falling short. Vice versa, if the target is way too high, it just becomes a discouragement. They know that they can't achieve it, And so they maybe do not modify their behaviors in small little ways at the end of the month because it's pointless. So setting targets, if you're going to do setting targets, you have to be very mindful about what target you set at what time of the year. If you just put 10 every month, then it may just not be as effective. So I wanted to ask at this point, I wanted to ask everybody if you have any questions for me about how this works or any of the specifics to these tools. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, that's fine. If questions come up at some later point, and you know how to reach me. If you want help setting up a CSF or discussing what things you might track on a CSF, or if you want some help creating a spreadsheet for a sales rep, then please let me know. I'm happy to help you with that or do it for you or talk with you about it, you know, whatever appeals to you. All right, so that's all I have for today. Our next meeting is June 29th, and we're going to be talking about overcoming objections. And so I'm going to lay out some strategies and some techniques for overcoming objections, but I do have some homework for you. I would love for you all to think of objections that you're hearing in the field so that we can cumulatively come up with something like 5 or 10. So if we go through some of the strategies and techniques of overcoming objections, maybe we can then have a discussion collectively about what objections we're hearing in the field right now and how we can apply those techniques to the objections that we're hearing in the field right now. So if all of you could just think about any objections you're hearing out in the field and just send me an email, I would love to try to accumulate like somewhere between 5 and 10 so that we can have a good discussion about it next month. All right, unless anybody else has anything you want to talk about or say or any questions, we're done.